kindly use headphones for better experience. Story number 1. I was driving through Montana, heading east, and my company had miscalculated my mileage, so I requested an emergency fuel up. They responded with the nearest approved gas station, but it wasn't exactly close. I turned off the main highway and headed toward my stop. It was pitch black, with no moon, no city lights, and I hadn't seen any headlights for about an hour. Cruising down the highway, I noticed something in the middle of the road at the furthest extent of my headlights. Naturally, I slowed down as I approached it. When I got a good glance at it, I slammed on my brakes, stopping right in the middle of the highway. All I could think was, what did I just see? I backed up, looking in my mirror until I saw its dark silhouette in my brake lights. I pulled the brakes, put on my jacket, grabbed my flashlight, and hopped out. I walked to the back of my trailer and shone my light on it. There it was, a headless, skinless, mangled corpse. I froze, my jaw dropping. I didn't know what I was looking at. I stood there, in the middle of the highway, in the cold, stagnant air. The only sound was the hum of my truck 50 feet back, watching the steam rise from this pile of meat. There was no fur, there was no clothing, just a fully intact rib cage with a mess of other miscellaneous bones attached by ligaments. I debated calling the police, but I had 0 cell service. The nearest town was about 50 miles out. When I put my phone away, I flashed my light around and saw a handful of coyotes standing at the end of the road, staring at me. Then, they started coming through the fence and trotting in my direction. I figured this was the part where I should get back in the truck before I got into a situation, so I did, and continued on my way. To this day, I do not know what I saw. Whatever it was, and whatever had happened, I was almost a witness to it. I convinced myself that it was more than likely an animal, hit by another truck like mine at highway speeds. But in retrospect, I've never seen roadkill that strange before. Story number 2. Many years ago, I was on a shift called Meet and Turn. This is where a truck driver domiciled out of the city drives a load halfway to its destination, meeting another driver who takes it the rest of the way. I had been doing runs like these for several months and found out that I had to meet the other driver an hour before they arrived. It was a dark and empty lot around 3 a.m., so with time to kill, I decided to close my eyes and take a short nap. About 10 minutes into my nap, I was awakened by a barking dog. I tried to ignore it, but the barking carried on for several minutes, growing louder and closer. It became clear that either the dog was trying to alert me to something, or it was just being a pain. So, I sat up and looked out my window, and what I saw left me motionless. Standing inches away on the other side of the glass was a man around 35 years of age. He was a large fellow, barking at me with crazed eyes and even frothing a little at the mouth. The sheer creepiness struck me, and without making any sudden movements, I gently reached down, started my truck, and slowly began pulling away. As I did, he chased after me, much like an angry dog, still barking as I drove off. Needless to say, I don't take naps on the job anymore. Story number 3. I was driving through Kansas on I-70 at night when I encountered one of the craziest thunderstorms I've ever seen. The rain was so heavy that the road started flooding, forcing me to pull into a service plaza to wait it out. That's when things got creepy. As I sat in my truck, watching the storm, there was a series of intense lightning strikes, followed by a sudden blackout. Then, a massively bright light began moving behind the clouds. It was too slow to be an aircraft, but too fast to be part of the storm system. The light moved up over the hills and trees before crossing directly overhead and disappearing behind the service plaza. The transit from the tree line to the plaza took maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and while it was overhead, it cast everything in an eerie blue glow, lighting up the entire parking lot. I seriously thought aliens were invading. Within 10 minutes of the mysterious light disappearing, the rain stopped completely, and the parking lot lights flicked back on as if someone had flipped a switch. I wasted no time getting out of there, constantly checking my mirrors for spaceships or those alien walkers from War of the Worlds. Story number 4. My usual run is from Vancouver to San Francisco. Most of the time, it's a straightforward trip, with little to challenge a seasoned trucker like me. I prefer driving at night when the roads are clear, but sometimes the darkness hides things you don't expect. I've seen UFOs, Bigfoot, you name it. But nothing scared me more than the people I see walking along the highway shoulder, far from any town or city. The first time I saw one, I was on my junior run down south on Highway 5. It was a woman in a blue summer dress, casually strolling down the highway under a full moon. We were miles from anywhere, and she didn't even glance at me as I drove by. She just kept walking with a vacant smile. I figured she was a hippie from a nearby campsite and kept driving. But she wasn't the last one I saw. It's not every trip that you see them, but they're out there. They don't seem to be around during the day, or maybe they just blend in better. Truckers call them moon wanderers, but I prefer shoulder walkers, since that's always where they are. Men, women, young, old, different shapes and sizes, just like regular people. But there's something off about them. A few months ago, I saw an old lady that still haunts my dreams. She was in a hospital gown, looking like she was on death's door. Sunken eyes, frizzy white hair, pale skin. She smiled as if she recognized me. Her pace was a slow shuffle, and the sound of her hospital slippers scraping the road was unnerving. She reminded me of my grandma, so I decided to stop. I pulled over and grabbed my flashlight. As I walked toward her, I could hear her slippers scraping against the gravel. She kept shuffling forward, and the closer she got, the sicker she looked. I called out to her, asking if she was okay, but she didn't respond. She just kept smiling and moving toward me. My heart pounded, and my feet felt glued to the ground. She was so close now, reaching out with her wrinkled hands, fingers wiggling like she was trying to grab me. Her mouth opened, showing pale gums, but she didn't say a word. Suddenly, she grabbed my ankles and started dragging me down the road, Her strength was unreal, and I kicked at her, finally hitting her jaw hard enough to make her let go. I scrambled back to my truck, but she kept walking, her eyes never leaving mine. I got in and sped off, glancing back to see her still staring at me, her chapped lips twisted into a smirk. Other truckers say I'm the first to interact with a shoulder walker, and I hope I'm the last. Since then, every time I see one, they look right at me. I'll never stop for them again, and if you're smart, you won't either. Story number 5. A few years back, I was driving for Costco, especially busy around the holidays with extra toy shipments. One night, I got a last-minute call to restock giant Spider-Man dolls at a rural Kentucky location. They knew I was a fast driver, so I got the late-night duty. I loaded my truck and hit the road, heading out on the 265. Around 3 a.m., an eerie feeling crept over me. Figuring it was just fatigue, I popped a couple of no-daws. 15 minutes later, the road started to fog up, thicker than I'd ever seen. It got so bad I had to pull over and wait. The road was deserted, and I was ahead of schedule, so I figured I'd wait for the fog to clear. 5 minutes passed in complete silence, and then my truck went dead. No lights, no engine, nothing. I tried my CB, but got no response. My cell phone had no signal either. As I sat there, wondering what to do, I heard what sounded like a child crying. It slowly changed into a woman's cries. Despite being a big guy with 6 feet and 250 pounds, I refused to leave the cab. I rolled down my window and called out, asking if anyone needed help. The crying stopped immediately. Then I heard a sinister laugh, as if mocking me. The more scared I got, the louder the laughter became. Suddenly, the laugh stopped, and my truck roared back to life. The fog cleared just as quickly as it had come. I floored it out of there, driving like a bat out of hell. When I reached the next truck stop, I ran to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and asked myself, did that really just happen? Thank you for joining me tonight, brave souls. If you enjoyed this tale and want to hear more chilling stories, don't forget to hit that like button. It lets me know you appreciate the spine-tingling content I create. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Spooky Whisperer and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Trust me, you won't want to be left in the dark. Until next time, stay curious, stay cautious, and remember, sometimes the scariest things are the ones you can't see. Good night, and sweet dreams.